Hello everyone, welcome. I hope you're all having a good day. And I know I am because I can finally do something that I wanted to do for a long time. And that is talk about football here on YouTube. It's something that I've wanted to do for a long time. I'm a huge football fan. So having the opportunity to finally come on here and discuss different things about football, doing tier list, talking about different players' careers, maybe doing some documentary style videos. Obviously, that's something I'd like to do as we get further along. But I thought today start off with something that I wanted to do for a while, ranking footballers in a tier list. Now, I've seen a lot of other YouTubers doing this, and I always kind of want to give my opinion on it because I'm a very opinionated person. For those who probably don't know me personally, I love to debate, I love to discuss things about football and to get my opinions across. So I thought this would be a great way to do it, ranking 163 professional footballers, football icons from the late 90s, the 2000s, the 2010s, up until modern day. Now I'm just going to state this. There might be some players in this list that I don't personally know. Right, I was born in 97, so I started watching football around 2002, early 2000s period. So from that period onwards, I'm sorted, I'm fine. Before then, the knowledge is a little bit scattered. I'm going to try not to talk about players that I haven't really seen much with my own eyes. Like, obviously, I've gone back and watched a lot of old footage and things like this, but I think you can't really have a strong opinion on a player unless you've seen him live, playing, whether it be in the stadium, on telly, whatever it might be. Really having an experience of watching their career live as it played out. So that's kind of the approach I'm going to go for. I've not seen any of these players in this tier list, by the way, so we are going in fresh because I don't know anyone who's going to be in this list. I've not looked yet, so it's going to be interesting to see kind of how these players are going to be fitted into different categories. If we can see here, we've got a GOAT category, legend category, icon, world class, sensational, incredible, great player, one of many, overrated, and then only a hero, not an icon. So there's a lot of categories, but there's a lot of players. So this could take a while, but it's going to be fun to go through a few of these players, talk about their careers, and put them in a tier list and finally see how I would rank some of these players. Now, I'm going to be as objective as possible. So I am an Arsenal fan, so I'm going to try and take that side of my love for Arsenal and some of the players that I'm suspecting probably will be in this list. Take that out of it and just view it as objectively as possible. There's a few categories. There's a few ways that I'm kind of looking at kind of categorising these players. There's loads of different ways to categorise them. For me, I'll be looking at the longevity of their career. In my opinion, that's really important. How long did they stay on top for? How long was their longevity? And the quality of their longevity as well. How long was they in their prime for? Because obviously some players peak early, some players will peak a bit later on in their career. But in their prime years, when they peaked, how long was that peak for? And also, how good was that peak? So some players might peak for a little bit longer, have a longer period at the top, but they might not reach the same level as someone who peaked at a higher level over a short period of time. So there's loads of different variables, but I'll be going through those when we kind of get through this list and we kind of start deciphering where we're going to put some of these players. Also, this list won't be final as we're going through it. So the first few players, I'll obviously put them in different categories. That doesn't mean by the end of the video that they're going to be staying in those categories. There's always a room to manoeuvre them around. Maybe as the video goes on, we'll be looking at it thinking, this player doesn't probably fit in this category anymore. We might have to move him up, move him down. That will kind of unveil itself as we go through the video. So enough talking. Let's finally start ranking some of these football icons. So the first player we have, I think that's Eric Abidal. I think. That looks like Eric Abidal. Now, Eric Abidal, for me, is he one of the best left-backs of his generation? That's a tough one because I really like Eric Abidal. I love that Lyon team. That Lyon team, for those who don't know me personally, I was a huge fan of that Lyon team in the mid to late 2000s. That went on to dominate Ligue 1, won 7 Ligue 1s in a row. And Abidal was part of that. Obviously moved on to Barcelona, was part of that amazing Pep Guardiola team with Messi and, Xavi, Busquets, Iniesta, all those. And he was a figure in that team, but I never looked at Eric Abidal like he was one of the best players in his position in the world. I think during his peak years, I would not have him... Would I have him as a top 5 fullback of his generation? I don't think I would. And you saw the upgrade that Barcelona team had when they brought in Jordi Alba and replaced Abidal with Alba. But then again, Abidal, he had a decent long run at the top, really. I'd say from maybe about 2006 to 2011 was definitely a feature. Would be one of the best in the world in his position, maybe. It's very difficult. I think Abidal, I'm going to put Abidal in one of many. I think I'm going to put Abidal there for now. But obviously this could move. I think Abidal's a tough one to rank because he had that time out, obviously, when he was ill, came back, captained the Champions League final against Man United, was there to lift the trophy. Big moment for him. Obviously the comeback was there. I don't know if quality-wise I would have him over some of the other left-backs of his era. So for me, I'm comfortable putting him in with one of many. He's definitely not overrated. I think he's fairly rated for what his quality was, but I wouldn't really put him as higher than that in that list, in my opinion. The next player, this was one of my favourite players as a kid. And everyone will always talk about PES 6 and how overrated he was. But if you grew up watching Italian football in the mid-2000s, watching a lot of international football in the mid-2000s, you will know just how incredible Adriano was for Brazil and Inter Milan. The only problem is with Adriano is his prime was very, very short. I'd say he only really had 1 or 2 seasons where he was really like one of the best strikers in the world. I'd say between 2004 to 2006, Adriano was an animal. Absolute animal. One of the best long shots in the world that I've ever seen. Power, the way he struck the ball, that left foot, from any angle, from any range. Physically, he was an absolute monster, a beast of a player, but also technical as well. His skill on the ball, the way he could manoeuvre around players, his dribbling ability, his pace. Adriano was a complete striker, but he just didn't do it for long enough. Obviously, personal reasons. Obviously, he lost his dad, and he never really recovered from the mental battle of that. But his peak was so high, really, for that period of time. It just wasn't long enough. So I'm going to put Adriano in. Oh, it's tough. He was a great player. He was sensational, to be honest. For a 2-year stretch, Adriano was really sensational. But over the course of his career, and I'm guessing the other people that will be put in this list, I don't think I can have Adriano over some of those other players. So I'm going to put him in the great player category for now, but that can always obviously change. But I think he definitely goes above Abidal for quality of player. Obviously, Abidal probably had a better career than Adriano, but the quality of Adriano when he was at his peak, he was unplayable. He truly was one of the most dominant strikers I've ever seen in my time watching football. The next player on this list is Sergio Aguero. Kun Aguero, Manchester City and Premier League legend. Aguero. My opinion's very mixed on Sergio Aguero because I think in the Premier League, obviously the guy was a goal-scoring machine. I think he's got the best goals-to-game ratio in the history of the Premier League, which is ridiculous, really, when you think about it. The only thing with Aguero is he was very, very injury prone during his time at Man City. Obviously, still scored a lot of goals. But Aguero, the problem is with Aguero, it would be 20, 25 games a season. He'd miss a lot of football. Obviously, he was still very impactful when he played, scored a lot of goals, was very, very, very crucial in that Manchester City turnaround in their fortunes in the early 2010s. And obviously stayed there for, well over a decade. The thing that would bring me down with Aguero would be his international career. Is poor, to be honest, for a player of his quality. Aguero should have achieved more internationally, I think, in my opinion. Obviously, still a great player, but just didn't really do much on the international stage. Was kept out of the team by Higuain a lot of the time. And I think for a player of his quality, should have probably achieved more in the game, in my opinion. I know that's obviously, it's all relative, but I do think Aguero had the ability to be one of the greats of the game. Very short centre of gravity, very strong, hard to knock off the ball, amazing dribbler, goal scoring ability, could score from anywhere. Good in the air as well for someone of his height, really, really good in the air. But Aguero, I think, would just miss out on that. Would he be an icon? I don't know. He's definitely not a legend of the game, in my opinion. I wouldn't have Aguero as a legend of the game. I think in the big moments, big games, in Europe, yeah. I know he got that hat-trick against Bayern in the Champions League. When was that? Was that 15-16, I think? 14-15 or 15-16. The hat-trick against Bayern Munich. But I don't think I'd put him over a lot of the other players that I'm expecting to come in this list. So I'm trying to think ahead. He's an icon for Man City. But for the world game, for the legacy of football, I'd probably have him world class, I think, Aguero. Would he be... this is tougher than I thought. This is really difficult. Would he be world class or an icon? Am I being harsh? I mean, he's got arguably the most legendary goal in the history of the Premier League. That goal against QPR to win City the league at the last minute. Take it away from Man United. That's pretty iconic, to be fair. Again, best goals to game record. I'm going to keep him in world class for now, and maybe that'll change as we go along. But we'll have to wait and see. Alisson, for me, probably been the best goalkeeper in the world over the last few years. Yeah, I think Alisson. Where are we going to put Alisson? Definitely not incredible. He's definitely above that. I would say Alisson. He's been one of the best goalkeepers in the world, really, for the last 6-7 years. I think since he signed for Liverpool, the way he transformed that team, the confidence he gave to the back four. Honestly, I'd say Alisson. He would definitely be in that conversation as one of the best, one-on-one shot stoppers in the history of football. That's not an exaggeration. I think one-on-one, Alisson was unbelievable. And his distribution as well, his passing range. Got a lot of assists, scored a few goals as well, actually, for a goalkeeper. That's pretty impressive. I'd have him as an icon, I think. I think he'll definitely go down as an icon of the game. One of the best goalkeepers of his era, by far. Yeah, I think Alisson is an icon, in that icon category, yeah. But then, seeing Alisson above Aguero just doesn't sit right with me. I don't know. Should I put Aguero as in that icon category? Yeah, I think I will. I think he's had too many iconic moments. His debut for City against Swansea, there was 4 goals. The goals against Bayern Munich that he scored. The goal against QPR. Yeah, I think Aguero, Aguero's definitely an icon. If Alisson's an icon, then so is Aguero. Definitely. Next up, Nicolas Anelka. Now, again, Arsenal bias aside, even though I mean, he'd probably go down more as like a Chelsea legend nowadays than he would an Arsenal legend. But Anelka, obviously, I was only young. I was probably about a year, 2 years old when he was doing his thing at Arsenal, revolutionising that forward role. Just honestly, you could argue Anelka's one of the best teenage footballers of all time. You could argue that. I think that's definitely an argument you could make. Came into that Arsenal team and was one of those first players that Arsene Wenger bought that really helped transform that Arsenal team. So dynamic, so quick, strong as well. Very similar. Now, I'm not saying that their careers panned out the same way, but I think technically and ability-wise, I think Anelka's one of the best strikers I've ever seen. I think he's in that R9. If you're talking about talent, Anelka's up there for me. Anelka was unbelievable. On his day, unplayable. The only thing that knocks Anelka back, for me, I think his inability to stay at one club long enough to really create a solid legacy. I mean, Anelka, you could argue, has had a bit of a journeyman career, really, at the top of football, but still moving around. He went to, obviously, Arsenal, Real Madrid, Liverpool, Man City, Fenerbahce, Bolton, obviously Chelsea, Juventus for a period as well, West Brom. I don't know. I think talent-wise, Anelka was incredible. But did he really ever achieve what he should have in the game? He's definitely not overrated. He's definitely not one of many. I think he's definitely one of the most talented strikers of his generation. And did achieve a lot as well. Won the Premier League with Arsenal, won the Premier League with Chelsea. Did a double, I think, with both teams as well. Yeah. Won the Euros with France as well. Won the Champions League with Real Madrid. I think Anelka would be sensational for me because he was a sensation at his best. But I think probably didn't achieve what he should have done in the game for what his talent was. I think at times he was a world-class striker, but it just wasn't consistent enough with Anelka. I think that's the one thing that drags him down. Obviously moving around a lot as well didn't help. I think if he would have stayed at Arsenal for a more continuous period, if he would have stayed at Madrid for a bit longer, if he would have signed for Liverpool, maybe he would have been in that world-class category. But for me, I think Anelka sits in that sensational category pretty comfortably for me. Ashley Cole. Now, it's kind of one of these things with Ashley Cole that you can't really debate. I think nowadays, the consensus is that Ashley Cole is one of the greatest left-backs in the history of football. I think Premier League, if you're having a Premier League conversation, I think Ashley Cole is definitely the best left-back in the history of the Premier League. I think it's him or Dennis Irwin probably for a different generation. But for my generation, from what I've seen, I think Ashley Cole would probably be the best Premier League left-back of all time. Defensively, one of the best one-on-one defenders I've ever seen. His ability to read the game, his pace, his ability to dribble up the pitch as well. Very underrated, I think, Ashley Cole going forward. Probably didn't have the assists of someone like an Andy Robertson or a Leighton Baines. But the way he pressed fullbacks back, that triangle that he had at Arsenal where it was Cole, Pires and Henry, probably one of the best left sides in the history of English football. Obviously, what happened when he left Arsenal, again, this is bias aside, this isn't me knocking Ashley Cole because he left Arsenal to go to Chelsea, taking that aside. I do think Ashley Cole is a little bit overrated, I think. I do think he's a little bit overrated. I think what makes Ashley Cole overrated is the way he's put in discussions with people like Paolo Maldini, Roberto Carlos, Marcelo even. Ashley Cole was not on their level. I'm sorry, he wasn't. That might be a really controversial take from me, but I never looked at Ashley Cole. He never had the ability going forward, definitely. He didn't have the technical ability of someone like Marcelo or Roberto Carlos. Never impacted the game up as far up the pitch as they did. Technically, could not cross the ball like them, couldn't pass the ball like them, couldn't strike the ball as well as them either. Didn't have the passing ability of them. Defensively, he was very good, but again, I'd still have Maldini defensively over Ashley Cole. So I think the fact people put him in that conversation would mean he's overrated, in my opinion. But he still was one of the best left backs in the Premier League. But I think he was one of the best left backs in the Premier League when the Premier League wasn't one of the best leagues in the world. So I think it does knock him down a little bit for me. Like you could argue Lizarazu was one of the best left backs in the world when he was at Bayern Munich, but the Bundesliga wasn't one of the best leagues in the world. So you wouldn't have him in the same conversation as someone like a Maldini, in my opinion. I think the way he's discussed makes him overrated, but from what I think he was a world-class left-back, but he wasn't one of the best left-backs of all time, in my opinion. I think he's the rung below. I think he's in the same category as someone like Evra. When people try and act like there's a massive gap between Ashley Cole and Patrice Evra, in my opinion, that's ludicrous. What can Ashley Cole do that Patrice Evra couldn't do? I don't see it at all. Similar longevity. You know, Patrice Evra made multiple Champions League finals, as did Ashley Cole. I don't really see the big disparity between them, in my opinion. I think Ashley Cole probably defensively was a bit more stronger than Evra, but you could argue Evra was a bit better going forward. I think Ashley Cole... Can I put him in overrated? I do think he's overrated. I do. I think he's overrated because of the way people discuss him, in my opinion. He's not one of the best left backs of all time. In the history of football, in post 2000, is Ashley Cole in the same conversation as Marcelo, Roberto Carlos, Paolo Maldini? I don't think so. I personally don't think so. I don't think even Jordi Alba, in my opinion, I think Jordi Alba was better than Ashley Cole. I think he offered way more to the team going forward. Cole was probably better defensively, but Alba was offensively just an absolute manic. Going forward, Jordi Alba was probably one of the best left backs of all time. And his career, what he achieved as well, how important he was to that Spain team in Euro 2012, completely revolutionised that left side of the Spanish national team. Yeah. I think Ashley Cole, for me, was incredibly consistent. He was always a 6, 7 out of 10. He was never a 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10, consistently, in my opinion. I wouldn't have him in that conversation. I really wouldn't. So for me, he's overrated. But he's not, again, these are all amazing footballers. He's not terrible. I wouldn't, like, people, he's not Leighton Baines. I wouldn't put him in the same category as a Leighton Baines or a Gal Clichy. He's definitely above them. He's in that second category. He's in that B category for me. He's not in that A category. He's not in that rarefied air of fullbacks. He's in the rung just underneath that, in my personal opinion. But away from Ashley Cole, let's go on to another Arsenal legend, I guess you could argue, and that's Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. Now, if we're talking longevity, Aubameyang's got longevity, 100%. I mean, I know he didn't really work out for him at AC Milan, but he was a young player then. Scored goals for fun at Saint Etienne. Scored goals for fun at Dortmund. Come to Arsenal. Probably was one of the best strikers of the modern era for us as far as his actual goal scoring ability goes. Very, very underrated. Didn't really ever get discussed about now. I think the way he left Arsenal, the way he got the contract and then kind of down tools a little bit, mentally checked out, attitude problems, probably brings him down a little bit. But I think you could argue Aubameyang was way more consistent than Anelka, in my opinion. I think he was. I think Anelka would have seasons where he would down tools and wouldn't play at that level consistently. Where I think Aubameyang was very, very consistent, in my opinion. Even now, he's still scoring loads of goals now for Marseille. Still scoring goals in the Champions League, even though he's, 36, 37 years old. You know, amazing longevity, pace, the way how good he linked up with players around him as well. I think Aubameyang, he's definitely above Anelka, I think. I'd have Aubameyang above Anelka. Talent-wise, I don't think they're in the same conversation. I think Anelka, talent-wise, is above Aubameyang. But career, consistency, how well they kept their prime years going as far as they did. Even Aubameyang at Barcelona, who was only there for about 6 months, was amazing at Barcelona. Scored goals everywhere he's gone, except from Chelsea, you could argue, but I'd have him world class, I think. I would. Yeah, I think Aubameyang is a world class striker of his generation. Who really can compare to Aubameyang as far as that kind of level of consistency? There's not many. But if you're talking consistency-wise, really, he's 2011, 2012 through till 2021. He's one of the best strikers in the world, in my opinion. Incredibly consistent, goals everywhere. Yeah, I definitely have Aubameyang as a world-class striker, I think. Definitely a world-class footballer of his era. Under Aguero, 100%, but definitely above Anelka as far as career goes, even though Anelka talent-wise. I think Anelka talent-wise is better than Aguero and Aubameyang. But he weren't consistent enough, in my opinion. Right, moving away from them, let's go to Gareth Bale. Gareth Bale is a tough one because if you're talking about moments, Gareth Bale has some of the most iconic moments in the history of modern football. Multi-time Champions League winner, scored big goals for Real Madrid in the Champions League final, 2 Champions League finals, Copa del Rey final against Barcelona when he went past Marc Bartra. You know, his last season at Spurs, probably one of the best players the Premier League's ever seen. If you're talking about individual season, Gareth Bale that season was completely unplayable. Absolutely unbelievable. False 9 under Villas-Boas, carried that team. And he was unplayable that season. He really was. Even before then, under Redknapp, the game against Inter Milan where he ruined Zanetti and Maicon, made them look ancient, really. The thing is with Gareth Bale, you could argue, is the way it ended at Real Madrid. His injury record goes against him a little bit. But I'm sorry, Gareth Bale, for what he did for Wales, carrying them to a Euro 2016 semi-final, carrying them to their first World Cup in 50 years or whatever it was. His impact for Real Madrid in big moments, his impact for Spurs in big moments. An individual player that could link up with his teammates, could win a game on his own. I don't think there's many players on this list that you could say could win a game on their own. Gareth Bale's one of those players. So for me, Bale would go into the legend category. He's not in the GOAT tier for me because Bale, for a lot of the time at Real Madrid, especially for those last 5-6 years, really wasn't a fixture in the first team at all. Really, he got replaced by Isco playing out on the right. Eventually, got replaced by Rodrigo and Valverde, and he couldn't really establish himself in that team. After say 2018, got loaned out to Spurs as well, back to Tottenham. Retired very young as well, retired at 33. So I think he just misses out on the GOAT category for me. But if you're talking about moments, Gareth Bale's one of the most clutch players of all time. He really is. If you're talking about you need someone to win you a game in a final, to turn up in a final, in a big game, in a must-win game, there's not many players that you'd have over Gareth Bale, in my opinion. He's definitely a legend of the game, one of the most successful British players of all time. You could argue the best footballing export to ever come out of Great Britain, in my opinion. I think there's not a player who's gone to play abroad, maybe other than, I mean, you could argue Kevin Keegan in the 80s or 70s or whatever it was when he won 2 Ballon d'Ors at Hamburg. But for me, Gareth Bale, In my era, I don't think anyone comes close to Gareth Bale as far as British footballers. I think he's, in my opinion, he's the greatest British footballer of all time. I don't. It's him. He's in the conversation anyway. He's definitely in the top three British footballers of all time for me, but just misses out on that GOAT category for me because of his consistency levels, his injury record, the fact he couldn't really cement his place in that Real Madrid team on a consistent basis. I think he just misses out, but it's very, very close. Very, very close for Bale. Next on that list, Michael Ballack. Now, Michael Ballack... Ooh, this is a tough one. This is really tough. You could argue Michael Ballack is one of the most complete midfielders of all time. In my opinion, could do pretty much everything. Defensively solid, could get you a goal. Amazing in the air. Incredible leadership as well. Michael Ballack. This is tough. Ballack's really tough, actually. I'd say, I mean, if we're going from what I've seen from Ballack, I'm going 2002 Champions League final onwards, really, because that was when I first saw Ballack playing for Leverkusen. He was so important for that Leverkusen team, so important for that Germany team that reached the World Cup final in 2002. Really carried Germany, you could argue, was one of the... I'd say him, Oliver Kahn, Miroslav Klose, those three players for a 10-year stretch for Germany carried that team. Carried that team to two international finals and also a semi-final as well of a World Cup. You could argue Ballack was one of the most influential players in that team. Really the leader of that team. His Chelsea run, for me, knocks him back a little bit. I think if you're talking about international football, if you're talking about what he did for Bayern, what he did for Leverkusen, his overall ability as a player, how complete he was as a midfielder, I think Michael Ballack is definitely high on this list. His Chelsea period for me was very underwhelming. I was very underwhelmed when he come to Chelsea. I think the team, I think he was kind of forced into the team a little bit. Mourinho went from playing a 4-3-3, very direct football, to playing like a 4-4-2 diamond, and having Ballack with Essien, with Lampard in front. I didn't think that worked personally. As it went along, Ballack did get better at Chelsea, but I think his Chelsea run was very underwhelming considering what he did previously. So Ballack, I think... Ooh, where are we going to put Ballack? Ballack would be... Would Ballack be world class or would Ballack be an icon? This is tough. Has Ballack had more of an impact on the game than Aubameyang? I think so, yeah. I think so. I think he has. Has he had more impact on the game than Aguero? I don't think so. I think Aguero's had more impact on the game than Ballack. I think. Ooh, this is tough. This is tough. This is really tough. I think Ballack's one of these players that I might end up moving around as this video goes on. I think Ballack's definitely someone who could move in this list. For now, I'm going to have Ballack in the world-class category. Above Aubameyang, I don't think I'd have him above Aguero. As far as impact on the game, iconic moments, overall quality, I don't think... Maybe Alisson. I think Alisson needs to drop below Aguero, I think Aguero should be there. Yeah, I think that's right. For now. We'll come back. I think we'll come back to Ballack. Ballack's a tough one. Fabian Barthez. Wow. Wow. Fabian Barthez was insane. For any fans of the early 2000s, whether it's in the Premier League, whether it's Ligue 1 for Marseille, If you was watching the French national team at the World Cups or Euros, Barthez is one of the most unique keepers of his generation. Was a ball-playing goalkeeper, but was absolutely insane. He'd come out and dribble out of his box. He'd try and do Cruyff turns on people. The way he'd dive for the ball would be so over the top and extravagant. He's one of the most athletic goalkeepers of his era. I think you could argue that. Barthez was an unbelievable, like his reflexes. Barthez was unbelievable. But Barthez was so erratic for me. Barthez, is he overrated? I don't really think many people rate Barthez that highly, in my opinion. I've never seen Barthez really brought up in that goalkeeper discussion of the best of all time. I've never really saw Barthez getting that, so I wouldn't say he's overrated. I would say Barthez he's a hero. I think he's a cult figure in football. But he's definitely not an icon. I think definitely Barthez sits very comfortably there, in my opinion. Yeah, I think he definitely fits there. Benzema easily, for me, gets into that legend category. Benzema was incredible for a solid 15 years, I'd say, of his career. He never really dropped. The one thing people will bring up about Benzema was his goal scoring. I think his lack of goal scoring during that time of Ronaldo being the focal point at Real Madrid. But my argument is Ronaldo doesn't get anywhere near the numbers he does unless he's playing with Benzema. I think Benzema, similar to someone like a Drogba at Chelsea with Lampard, I think Benzema was such an amazing complementary player that it kind of takes away from how amazing Karim Benzema actually was. Technically, physically, his speed, his touch, his technique, his physical ability at Lyon as well. I think people really underrate his time at Lyon. I think because what he went on to achieve at Real Madrid, his time at Lyon kind of gets forgotten about a little bit. But Benzema at Lyon was an animal. He was an absolute animal. Came through 17, 18-year-old in the mid-2000s and was dominating Ligue 1, getting unbelievable amount, I think getting like 30-something goals for at least 2 seasons. Benzema was unreal. Went to Real Madrid. Took a while for him to really settle. I think obviously being such a young player, did take him a while to settle there, but when he did, I think Mourinho coming in really helped Benzema in that second, third year. Turned him into an absolute animal of a striker. Hard working, the way he'd press. Again, his goal scoring ability. And also, I think the last few years that he had at Real Madrid, when Ronaldo left and he had to kind of take the mantle and be the main man, showed you just how incredible Karim Benzema was. I think about the games against PSG, the games against Man City when he won the Ballon d'Or, that amazing Champions League run. He was the best player in the world in that time period, I think. As far as impact, big moments, goals, assists as well. Benzema easily gets in that legendary category. GOAT status, I don't think he gets there. I'd have him above Bale, I think. I think Bale has probably more iconic moments, but Benzema was a fixture in that Real Madrid team. He was pretty much undroppable for well over a decade. Like, he was their main striker. I know Higuain kind of rotated in and out for a period of time. But no matter how many managers they had, it didn't matter how much money they spent, who they bought in, no one was replacing Karim Benzema in that team. He was irreplaceable in one of the most dominant teams in the history of football. So you can't really argue with that. I think the one thing that knocks Benzema maybe a little bit from getting into that GOAT status is his international career. Obviously, he had the issues, and I'm not going to get into that here, but he missed out on the 2018 World Cup. When France obviously won the World Cup, he missed out on that. So I do think that does kind of hold his legacy back a little bit when we're talking about his whole career, including international football. But when he did play for France, again, quality was on show in abundance, really, from Benzema. Absolutely brilliant footballer. And definitely, if you're talking about someone who's kept their consistency, there's not many strikers as consistent as Karim Benzema, in my opinion. So he sits very, very comfortably in that legendary status. Next up, Dimitar Berbatov. Now, Berbatov, I think Berbatov is overrated, in my opinion. I feel very, very comfortable putting Berbatov as overrated. Berbatov, technically, as if you're talking about the technical footballer, his first touch, his range of passing, his dribbling ability, his vision, the way he sees and plays the game, Berbatov was a genius. But if you're talking about his career, the way people speak about Berbatov, they try and speak about him like he was one of the best strikers of his generation, and he wasn't. Let's be honest, he wasn't. Goal scoring wise, he doesn't come close to most players in this list, most strikers in this list. I don't know. Am I being harsh? Actually, am I being harsh on Berbatov? Because I think Berbatov, quality wise, like technically wise, he was unbelievable. He really was a genius. Like the way he saw the game, but impact, not for me. No, not for me. Is he overrated or is he one of many, Berbatov? I think Berbatov is... He's not overrated because I think technically he is brilliant, thinking about it. I think when I really think about it, Berbatov, one of many. Yeah, I think so, yeah. One of many. He was one of many. No, he wasn't one of many. No, he wasn't. This is hard. This is really, really difficult. Why is it so difficult to rank Berbatov? I think Berbatov, because it's so conflicting, because on the eye, Berbatov is one of the best on the eye footballers you could watch. He passes the eye test. But if you're talking about career, if you're talking about impact on the game, if you're talking about impact on the teams he played for, you know, you could argue he had a similar impact at Spurs as Robbie Keane and Defoe. Like, I think he doesn't get in that list for me. He was kept, even when he was at Man United, I think he made them worse when he came in. Obviously, they got rid of Tevez. Berbatov kind of took the Tevez role, and the way he played the game made Man United a worse team. Near the end of his time at Man United, he was kept out of the team by Danny Welbeck and Javier Hernandez. So, yeah, I think Berbatov for me, yeah, I'd say overrated. I do think he's a little bit overrated, Berbatov. Again, on the eye, amazing, but impact, the way people speak about him, no, not for me. Not for me. Leonardo Bonucci. Bonucci's one of the best centre backs of his generation. 100%. 100%. Bonucci, his passing ability, I think he's probably one of the best ball distributors that I've ever seen from that position as a centre back. There's not many better than Bonucci. And obviously his defensive qualities as well. Yeah, Bonucci's an icon for me of modern football. He's one of the best defenders of his generation. He really is. And I think because he was playing in Serie A, maybe he gets a little bit underrated. But I think if you're talking about what he did for Italy as well, his quality when he played for Italy, how transformative he was in that back line for Italy when he played, the ability to play the ball quickly, and his range of passing to break lines and break press. Bonucci's one of the best at that, in my opinion. And obviously, like I said, defensive qualities, his ability to make, his timing of his tackles, his positioning. He wasn't the quickest. Bonucci wasn't the quickest centre-back. He wasn't the most athletic, wasn't the tallest, wasn't the strongest. But his intelligence and his IQ, he's definitely, he's in that list for me as being one of the best of his generation. I really do think that. So Bonucci sits in that icon category for me very comfortably. Buffon is, for me, the second greatest goalkeeper of all time. So because he's the second greatest goalkeeper of all time, I can't put him in the GOAT category. As much as it pains me, because Buffon was incredible. Honestly, he's one of the most commanding goalkeepers I've ever seen in the history of football. Just an absolute monster in goal, Buffon. Physically, his reflexes, how strong he was when he made saves. He was never compromised. His leadership, his longevity. If you want to talk about longevity, I mean, Buffon, he was on the top of world football for like 20 years. Like, name me another player outside, I guess, Messi and Ronaldo who can compare to Buffon's longevity. Like, it's not many. I know he's a goalkeeper, so maybe that takes it out a little bit. But Buffon, for me, yeah, he's definitely a legend of football. Is he in the GOAT category, Buffon? I don't know. I don't know with Buffon. Because he is one of the greatest goalkeepers in the history of football. That's just a fact. Is he one of the GOAT? Yeah, he is. He is. Yeah, Buffon's in that GOAT category for me. World Cup winner. Didn't win the Champions League, which I think people always hold against him, but he came close multiple times. Reached like 3 or 4 Champions League finals. Very unlucky the way they went out. Buffon's a legend of the game. 100%. World Cup winner as well with Italy. Yeah, I think Buffon comfortably sits in that GOAT conversation for me. There's only one goalkeeper I would have from my era, from when I started watching football, that I would have above Buffon. So I don't know if he's in this list. I'm assuming he is. But Buffon for me definitely would be in that GOAT category for goalkeepers, 100%. Next up, Sergio Busquets. Now, Busquets is one of those players that I've really done a big 180 on. Because when I was growing up, I really didn't understand why Busquets was so rated. I didn't see it. I didn't get it at all. He wasn't athletic. His passing range wasn't the best. He wasn't the greatest tackler. He wasn't strength-wise, he wasn't very physically imposing. He was tall, but he was gangly. He wasn't very physically strong, like Vieira or someone like that. But Busquets, as I got older, I really think he was one of a kind. Busquets. He's one of the most unique footballers I've ever seen, really, play football. Because he shouldn't be as good as he is. Because, like I said, physically, he's very underwhelming. He's not quick, he's not strong, he's not very athletic, he's not very agile. But it's his IQ. I think Busquets, you could argue, has got probably the greatest brain for football in the history of the game. I really do. You could argue that for Busquets. The way he'd lure people in and just completely sell them with a slight feint, a slight move of his body, a little drag back of the ball. Busquets was so unique in that pivot position. You can talk about the Makelele role as more of a defensive midfielder, but Busquets, you should call that role the Busquets role, in my opinion. His ability to sit deep, control the tempo of the game, his ability to intercept the ball at the perfect moment without making any rash challenges. Busquets was, on his day, I really do think Busquets was unplayable. You couldn't get near him. Which, again, he doesn't make sense, Busquets, because you should be able to get near him, but you can't, because he's so intelligent. He's definitely a legend of the game, Busquets. Would I have him above Benzema? This is tough. He's above Bale, for sure. He's definitely above Bale. If you're talking consistency, then yeah, Busquets was one of the most consistent players in the history of the game. Okay. Busquets, yeah, I'm going to leave Busquets just underneath Benzema, I think. I think Busquets definitely... I think Buffon has to come down, actually. I think that GOAT category should only really be there for a very small select number of players. And I think because Buffon for me isn't the best goalkeeper of all time, I think you should just miss out. But Buffon definitely is definitely in that legend category. Is he underneath Benzema? He's above Busquets. Is he above Busquets? No, that I think. That to me looks right. Yeah, that to me looks right. I want to stick with that. Next up we have Cafu. Cafu for me is the second greatest right back of all time. So we've gone about Buffon being the second greatest of all time for a goalkeeper. I think Cafu's the second greatest right back of all time. Really revolutionised that right back position defensively and going forward. Technically incredible. Engine as well. Like, never really ran out of steam. Longevity, still playing at the highest level, well into his mid-30s. Part of that incredible AC Milan team. Won the World Cup as well. I think he's the only player in the history of football to appear in 3 World Cup finals back-to-back. So you can't really argue that with Cafu, really. I think Cafu, he's not in the GOAT category because, again, I do think there's players in his position that would be above him. But I do think Cafu is above Busquets, but below Benzema, I think. Yeah, I think Cafu sits there for me. I think Cafu was one of the most generational players of his era. Like, he was once in a generation right back. I think the only thing that brings Cafu down a little bit is the person that followed him, which I think affects his legacy a little bit because I think he went to surpass what Cafu did. But Cafu revolutionised the right back position, bombing up and down the pitch, technically unbelievable, skillful, amazing crosser of the ball, leadership, tough as well. I think Cafu definitely goes in that legend category for me, 100%. And he is above Busquets, and he's above Buffon, yeah, I think. Even at Roma, like you talk about Cafu, very underrated at Roma as well, kind of gets forgotten about because of time. But he was a very important part of that Roma team that went to win on the Scudetto in 2001. He was crucial to that team. So yeah, Cafu sits very, very comfortably in there. Sol Campbell. People who know me will be looking forward to this. Sol Campbell was my favourite player when I was growing up, which is weird. He's a centre-back, obviously. When I was a kid, I used to play centre-back, wanted to be a centre-back, but I've got the athletic ability of a fridge, so I was never going to make it. But Sol Campbell really was a world-class centre-back. I actually think Sol Campbell is criminally underrated, and this is bias aside. This isn't me with my Arsenal hat on or nostalgia or anything like that. Sol Campbell is one of the most underrated centre-backs of all time. He really is. Physically incredible. Fast, strong, amazing in the air. Could score goals, important goals as well. Amazing leadership. The ability to track back on his runs. Like, he never really got caught out because he was so physically imposing and fast. Really trying to get past Sol Campbell was an almost impossible task. Sol Campbell, for a period of time, I think between, you could argue, 98, maybe not 98 because he was still coming up, still very young. I think Sol Campbell between 2001 when he signed for Arsenal and 2004, he was up there as one of the best centre-backs in the world. Maybe not above some of the Italian defenders, but if you're having him saying the argument with someone like a Puyol or someone like that, I'd have Sol Campbell over Puyol in that period of time. The only thing with Campbell is, again, taking my subjective hat off and being objective as possible, Sol Campbell's level didn't last as long as a lot of other players from his era, which goes against Sol Campbell. Really, post 2006, he was declining. He lost a lot of pace. He was getting older, of course, as well. So Sol Campbell, I mean, he still was very good. He was very good for Portsmouth. Obviously, won the FA Cup, captaining them to the FA Cup. Was one of the main reasons that team was so successful getting to Europe. That game against AC Milan. Yeah, Sol. He's definitely one of my favourite players of all time, but this is me trying to be subjective. So, Sol Campbell, for a period of time, was a really world-class centre-back. Didn't hold his level for long enough, so I'm going to say he was world-class, but he's the kind of bottom of world-class. Would Sol Campbell be above Aubameyang? That's a thought, you know. Because Aubameyang had the consistency that Sol Campbell probably didn't have, like the longevity aspect at the top level. Sol probably didn't have that. He spent a lot of his career at Tottenham. Had a couple of years there at Arsenal, about 5 years at Arsenal. But his last 2 seasons at Arsenal, didn't really play much, got injured a lot. When he played, he was still very good. Obviously scored in the Champions League final against Barcelona. Still had big moments, but was replaced in the England team by John Terry. Sol Campbell, world class for me. I think he sits in that world class category. For sure, in his era and for a period of time, Sol Campbell was elite. Truly elite. But just didn't do it for as long as maybe some of the other players. Like Bonucci, for example. I think, man for man, I think Sol Campbell was a better defender than Bonucci. But Bonucci had more to his game as far as his passing ability. Maybe Sol's distribution wasn't the best, where Bonucci was like an elite distributor from centre-back, where Sol probably wasn't that. So I'd probably say Campbell would sit nice and comfortably in that world-class category for me. So on from Campbell, we go to Fabio Cannavaro. Right, Cannavaro was one of the best centre-backs of his era. Definitely above Sol Campbell. Ballon d'Or. He should not have won that Ballon d'Or for me. He wasn't even the best player on his team when they won the World Cup. Pirlo, for me, was the best player on that World Cup winning team for Italy. He's definitely an icon of the game. He's above Bonucci, I think. I think he's above Bonucci because... then again, Cannavaro was bad at Real Madrid. I know he was older and it was past his prime a little bit. Really, because, like I said earlier, I'm going from when I watched these players. So I'm not going back to his time at Parma. I'm thinking about Cannavaro at Inter Milan, at Juventus, Real Madrid. That's what I'm thinking of when I think of Cannavaro. And at Inter Milan and Juventus, he was one of the best centre-backs in the world. Similar to Sol Campbell, post-2006, really started to decline quite rapidly. But again, peak... it's just tough. Is Cannavaro ahead of Bonucci for that time period? Again, this is not including his run at Parma or anything like that. This is strictly talking about Cannavaro post-2002. Is he above Bonucci? Oh, this is tough. He clears Sol Campbell. That's not a debate for me. He's definitely better than Sol Campbell. And defensively, that World Cup 2006 from Cannavaro was incredible. But I don't think he had the consistency in this era than someone like Bonucci. Impact-wise, though, maybe he's above Bonucci. They're neck and neck for me. I think Cannavaro and Bonucci, they're very, very close for me. Cannavaro as well wasn't the biggest centre-back. He was quite small, but he was so aggressive, so athletic, so fast. Read the game so well. But his career really did start to decline quite rapidly at Real Madrid. When he went back to Juventus, he wasn't very good there either. So I think Cannavaro, I would have him above Bonucci because I think his peak was higher than Bonucci's, even though I think Bonucci was more consistent over a longer period of time. I do think Cannavaro peak-wise was above Bonucci. I think Alisson probably needs to come down a little bit. I think Alisson needs to go there. I think just underneath Bonucci. Yeah, that looks better to me. Aguero above Cannavaro. Ooh. Oh, that's tough. That's really tough. Aguero above Fabio Cannavaro. Is that right? Oh, that's tough. That's really tough. No, I think Aguero sits above Cannavaro. Yes, he does. Yeah, he does. He definitely does. Danny Carvajal. Danny Carvajal is, for me, an incredible player. He's an incredible player. What he's been able to do with his career. Career-wise, Danny Carvajal is really should be high on this list. I just think as a player, I don't think he's above someone like Cafu. In my opinion, he's nowhere near Cafu. Talent-wise, I don't think he's really there. Was he a better right back than Ramos when Ramos was a right back? For me, no. I think Ramos was a better right back than Carvajal. Players of his era, is Carvajal better than Reece James? For me, no. Is he better than Trent? For me, no. Is he better than Lahm? No. Better than Dani Alves? No. Career-wise, he can speak to a lot of these guys, I think. He can speak to a lot. Anyone on this list, Carvajal can definitely make a pledge to be in this list. But I don't think he's above those. Career-wise, is he above Anelka? Yeah, he is. Yeah, he's above Anelka. He's definitely above Anelka. But he's not better than Sol Campbell. He's not a better defender than Sol Campbell. Prime level, Campbell definitely is above Carvajal. Yeah, I think actually, yeah, we're gonna leave him in sensational. Where's Casemiro on this list? His Man United run probably goes against him a little bit. Casemiro probably does. Because his consistency levels of Man United have been awful. But at Real Madrid, peak. Casemiro changed Real Madrid's fortunes, really. He was so important in that Real Madrid team that did the three-peat to the Champions Leagues. Casemiro was so important in that. I think Casemiro, at his best, was world-class. Is he above Sol? He's above Sol. He's above Aubameyang. Is he above Michael Ballack? Is he above Ballack? Oh, oh, that's tough. Is he a... Oh. No, I think Ballack was better than Casemiro. But I think Casemiro probably had... No, I'd still put Ballack above Casemiro. I think both similar in a way. Obviously, Ballack had such a high peak at Bayern and at Leverkusen. Casemiro had such a high peak at Real Madrid. Both kind of tapered off when they came to the Premier League when they got a bit older. So similar in a way, but I think Casemiro probably just underneath Ballack for me. Yeah, I think that's right. I think if you talk about the whole career, talent as a footballer, how complete they were, their ability, I think an international football as well. Casemiro's never really been that great, really, international level, where Ballack was incredible at international level. So, yeah, I think Casemiro just sits underneath. Iker Casillas. Casillas is not as good as Buffon. He's an icon, for sure. He's an icon of football. I think between, say... From when I first started watching football, from 2002 through till 2010, I think Casillas was one of the best in the world. It was him or Buffon. I think if you're talking consistently, for that period of time, it was him or Buffon. I know you had Oliver Kahn in there for a period of time. You had Cech in there for a period of time. Dida, I guess, if you wanted to, Victor Valdez, whatever. But I think they're definitely the two for me. Is he a better goalkeeper, though, than Alisson? Is Casillas above Alisson? Again, I'm trying to take nostalgia out of this because I don't want to have recency bias and I don't want to have nostalgia bias either. I want to be as objective as I can. I think Alisson probably has more to his game as a goalkeeper. Casillas had big moments though. World Cup for that save against Robben. People always talk about Martinez's save against Colin Mawani in the World Cup final, the last World Cup final. For me, Casillas, his save against Robben is in that same category for me. That save against Robben was unreal in 2010. But Casillas, he was good at Porto as well, actually. I know he had a bit of trouble at Real Madrid near the end. The way it ended at Real Madrid wasn't great. He fell out with Mourinho, fell out with the higher-ups there at Real Madrid. But was good at Porto. Is he above Alisson? I think for their impact on the game, I think Casillas probably has bigger moments than Alisson. I think Alisson was probably a better goalkeeper when you speak about all-around ability. But if you're talking about moments, if you're talking about stepping up when it really mattered in Champions League finals, World Cup finals, Euro finals, Casillas, yeah, I think he's definitely above Alisson. Is he above Bonucci? Ooh. So he's above Alisson as a goalkeeper. He's not above Buffon. No way. He's definitely not above Buffon. Is he above Bonucci? No. No, I don't think so. I think Bonucci played at such a high level and kept his consistency for so long, for like at least a decade, where Casillas would have seasons where he'd dip. He's quite error prone, Casillas, to be honest. Is Casillas above Alisson? I don't know, actually. That's really tough. Okay, going on to the next person in the list. And that person is Edinson Cavani. Cavani's a tough one for many reasons, to be honest. Because I think Cavani was one of those players that got like the most out of his career, to be honest. Probably not the most talented of footballers, but just unbelievable hard work. Physically, always committed, always in shape. Never really dropped his level as far as his commitment and his fitness went. Never had too many bad injuries in his prime. I'd say his prime would probably be those early Napoli days through till his final few years at PSG. So he had a good 10-year run, Cavani. I think the thing with Cavani, the problem with Cavani is he had elite movement. Like, Cavani's movement was always incredible. I always found his movement really impressive. The way he kind of drift off the edge of the shoulder of the centre backs in between the right back, kind of drifting into that left channel a little bit, coming inside. The problem with Cavani, even though he scored a lot of goals, especially at PSG, I feel like he wasted a lot of chances. His one-on-one finishing was a bit inconsistent in that department. So I think Cavani, on his day, when he was in form, when he was really going for it, was one of the most committed, hard-working centre-forwards of his generation. Very good in the air, good from free kicks, good goal scorer, but for me, I think he has to go in the... Is he better than Aubameyang, actually? He's definitely not an icon. He's definitely not in that category. Is Aubameyang better than Cavani in their prime? I think so. But then again, maybe not. They're both actually very similar. Both very physical strikers. With Aubameyang being very quick and Cavani being very hard-working, very dedicated. But I do think that Aubameyang, probably over the stretch of his career, has probably been a bit more impactful than Cavani. I think Cavani would go in stages where he'd kind of drift in and out of form. He'd have a few bad patches. Played out on the left a lot as well in those early PSG days. Kind of was forced on the other side of the team rather than being central, where he was probably more effective for Napoli. So I'd say he's world class, but he's not above Aubameyang, in my opinion. Maybe that's a bit of bias coming through. Maybe I saw a bit more of Aubameyang in his prime than I did Cavani. But Cavani was still an incredible striker. Definitely a world-class striker. Just probably not on this level for me, I think. I'd probably just have him... Has he got a better impact in the game? No, he's not got a better impact in the game than Sol Campbell. Definitely not. Campbell, what Campbell had to do, he was better than Cavani. Cavani probably had better longevity than Sol Campbell, but I think Sol Campbell's level for a defender was higher than Cavani was for a striker, in my opinion. Even though Cavani's goal record, especially like a few years there at PSG, he was incredible. Petr Cech is interesting because I think Petr Cech, in his prime, was probably the best goalkeeper in the world. I do think that. But his prime years, probably 2004 to 2012 maybe, that was Cech's peak, which for a goalkeeper is very short. I think Cech aged really poorly as a goalkeeper. He come to Arsenal, very error prone at Arsenal, terrible with the ball at his feet, not good enough to adapt to the modern game, in my opinion. So I do feel like he falls a little bit behind in that aspect. But in his peak at Chelsea, Petr Cech was unbelievable. Obviously, he had that amazing season in 2004-05, 24 clean sheets, only conceded 15 goals. I mean, the man was a monster, physically huge, massive wingspan as well. I always remember that with Cech. He always looked like he filled the goal out, similar to someone like a Peter Schmeichel. Looked massive in that goal. Very, very hard to beat. He's a tough one to rate, Cech, because again, I feel like his career petered off so much when he come to Arsenal. He was nowhere near that level as the game adapted. But at his peak Cech is better than peak Casillas for me. I do think that, yeah, I do. I think Cech at his highest level was better than Casillas, but Casillas did it for a longer period of time, more consistently at the highest level. Champions League, World Cup, you could argue that, whereas Cech probably didn't. Record amount of clean sheets in the Premier League for Cech as well. It's very tough. I think Cech is better than Oh, it's tough. That means Cech would be underneath Buffon. Oh, it's tough. Cech at his best. Is Cech better than Casillas at his best? Yes, he is, but Casillas did it for longer. I think Cech's in this weird middle ground between Alisson and Casillas, probably. Cech was incredible, though, you know. Yeah, I think there is where I'm happy. I think he's above Alisson as far as his legacy in the Premier League. I definitely would have him above Alisson, but he's not above Casillas as far as his impact on the game globally, his impact on the game at a world stage. I still would have Casillas above Cech, more consistent over a longer period of time, where Cech really fell off when he came to Arsenal. That 5-6 years period, really poor from Cech, in my opinion. He was really bad. Got replaced by Leno. Leno was significantly better. Martinez was better. Yeah, Cech for me would be in that category. I think if we're just taking his Chelsea form for those 7 years, you could argue Cech's in with Buffon, really. But I think overall career, I don't think he's above Casillas, in my opinion. So after Cech, we have Bonucci's Bonucci's teammate, Giorgio Chiellini. Now, Chiellini, I don't think was better than Bonucci, even though they were very different players. I think Bonucci was Bonucci was the ball player, more probably better on the eye, where Chiellini was more of a warrior. It was very kind of Vidic Ferdinand in that sense, in my opinion. So Chiellini is not above Bonucci. Is he still in that icon category? No, I don't think he. Ooh, then again. Ooh, oh, it's tough. Bonucci's definitely better. Cannavaro's better than Chiellini as well. Chiellini would go there for me. The very top of world class, almost in that icon category. But for me, yeah, I think Bonucci was better than Chiellini. That's a tough one, actually. You let me know, actually, in the comments what you think about that. Because the two obviously get linked so heavily with each other. It's kind of difficult to kind of rank them. Putting next to each other, it is quite tough. Thibaut Courtois, another goalkeeper. Courtois, ooh. Courtois probably is the best goalkeeper in the world right now, maybe. I would argue that. He probably has been the best goalkeeper in the world for the last few years. He's above Alisson, I think. Is he above Cech? Yes, he's above Cech. Courtois is above Cech, I think. Again, kept his level at a longer period of time. Hasn't really ever fell off. Is he above Casillas? Oh. No, I think Casillas is still above Courtois. It's very close. I think it's very, very close. But I do think Courtois and Casillas are very, very close. But I would have Casillas just a little bit above Courtois still. Very close though. Obviously Courtois, part of the amazing Belgian golden generation that obviously didn't really achieve anything. But an incredible goalkeeper, amazing at Atleti. Really great spell at Chelsea as well. Displaced better Cech, obviously. So that kind of puts Courtois ahead of Cech, really, because he was the one to displace him. Amazing for Real Madrid. I think Courtois definitely is comfortably sitting there for me in that category. The icon category is getting filled really quick. This is probably going to need a bit of shuffling around afterwards, but it's going to be tough to do that. Cristiano Ronaldo, I don't think really we need to go into too much depth really when it comes to Ronaldo. Easily in that GOAT category. Can't really be argued. Longevity, he has it. Goals, he has a ridiculous amount of goals. A ridiculous amount of assists. In his younger years at Man United, he was this direct, tricky winger who was an entertainer. Obviously, latter years at United, he became more efficient with his goals and his creativity. Went to Real Madrid, out on that left-hand side. Incredible goal-scoring record. Worked brilliantly with Benzema and Bale. And then, kind of, as he got a bit older, became more of a central striker. More of a poacher. Still an unreal amount of goals. Went to Juventus, was the quickest player in the history of Serie A to reach 100 goals. Even though he was in his mid-30s, which is a testament to Ronaldo, to be honest. I don't think many other players could have done that. So, yeah, I think Ronaldo, we don't really need to go into too much detail. I don't think he's the best player in the world of all time. He's not the best player of all time, but he's in that GOAT conversation, 100%. The next up is Hernan Crespo. Crespo is when you talk about gunmen in football, when you talk about goal-scoring strikers, hitmen, you think of players like Hernan Crespo, for me. In that early to mid-2000s period, Inter Milan, AC Milan, Chelsea. I mean, Crespo was an incredible goal-scoring striker, hard-working as well. I think very underrated, in all fairness. If there was an underrated category in this, I think Crespo would definitely be underrated. Definitely above Adriano for me. I think Adriano's peak was higher than Crespo. but Crespo, more consistent. I think his Chelsea spell's really underrated. I think when he first come to Chelsea under Ranieri, was kind of their main striker, him and Hasselbank and Johnson and all these players. Then when Mourinho came in, he went out on loan to Milan, was part of the amazing Milan team that went to the final in 2005, which lost to Liverpool, but Crespo was incredible. 2 amazing goals in the final. Consistently scoring goals everywhere he went. Crespo, for me, would be the first entry into that incredible category. I think you could argue him and Anelka, maybe. I think, again, peak Anelka, I would take over Crespo any day of the week. But Crespo is definitely comfortably one of the most underrated strikers of his generation. I really do think that. Crespo was an amazing centre-forward. Again, goal scorer, hard-working, pretty much a brilliant all-round striker. So I would have him in the incredible category for me. Dani Alves, for me, is the greatest fullback that I've ever seen play football. He's in the GOAT category for me. Dani Alves revolutionised the right-back position. I think he took what Cafu did and others like Cafu and reinvented the right-back position, especially in those years under Pep. People talk now about Trent Alexander-Arnold being this kind of inverted fullback, kind of linking play, dropping into midfield, passing the ball out, being a distributor from deep. That was Dani Alves. Dani Alves was doing that 10 years before Trent was doing it. His link up with Messi on that right-hand side. Obviously, Messi used to drift in a lot. So Alves dominated an entire right-hand side of football for like a decade. I mean, the guy's easily... I don't think it's even a conversation to me. He's the best right-back of all time. From what I've seen, I can't talk about Carlos Alberto or... I can't really talk on players like that because I didn't see them. But for me, in my era, for the past 20-odd years of watching football, Dani Alves, head and shoulders above everybody. I don't think there's been a better fullback than Dani Alves. I think consistently, might be seasons, where other players might eclipse Dani Alves. But year on year, consistency levels, the way he redefined that position, his pace, his dribbling, his vision, his passing ability, his goal scoring ability. Dani Alves for me. Yeah, he's the greatest right back of all time. Right, next up on this list is David Luiz. David Luiz is a hero. He's a cult hero. He's not an icon of football for me. David Luiz was a good ball-playing centre-back, but he was so erratic. I mean, you can't have him in this category for me. David Luiz was so error-prone, always out of position, so erratic and frantic. I think people like David Luiz because the style, the free kicks, the flair, the passing ability. David Luiz had that, but as a defender, I wouldn't trust David Luiz at all. Obviously came to Arsenal a bit later on in his career and was terrible, awful for Arsenal, always making mistakes, so error-prone, always out of position. Yeah, David Luiz for me, very much in this category for me, definitely at the bottom of that list. David Silva is criminally underrated. David Silva should be in the conversation as being one of the best players in the history of the Premier League for me, and he's never brought up in that conversation. Technically, he was phenomenal. The ability to control the ball, he's probably the best player I've ever seen in the Premier League to have such close control over the ball and dominate the ball. Similar to Iniesta, similar to Messi, similar dribbling style, very close control, the way he just changed and shifted the weight of his body, that low centre of gravity, his vision, his passing range. David Silva's incredible. David Silva, for me, he's above Ballack. 100% he's above Ballack. Is he above Aguero? Yes, for me, he's above Aguero. David Silva was so consistent year on year. Creative hub of that Manchester City team for a decade. Yeah, for me, he's in that list. He doesn't get into that legend status, I think, because he probably didn't have the moments of someone like a Bale or someone like that. But I do think he's so underrated. And I think what doesn't help David Silva was that he's in the same generation as Xavi, Iniesta, Fabregas, these kind of players. He's in that same generation as those amazing Spanish midfielders that I think he does get overlooked. But David Silva was always a feature in those in those Spanish teams, which tells you a lot, really, because that was the golden era of Spanish football, and he never looked out of place in those teams. He was always a feature in those teams. So David Silva, for me, 100% an icon. So consistent as well. His time at Valencia is so slept on, David Silva. David Silva with David Villa and Juan Mata, this amazing young Valencia team. David Silva was incredible. He was incredible for Valencia. Great for Real Sociedad as well at the end of his career. Speaking of David Villa, we now get on to David Villa. It probably does make sense that they will be put together. David Villa, sorry. Again, icon for me. David Villa, clutch. Such a clutch footballer. Big performances in finals, the 2010 World Cup. Massive performances. Always Spain's record goal scorer as well. Went to Barcelona. Probably, I think, the greatest team of all time. I don't think anyone comes close. That era for Barca between 2010 2012. I don't think anyone, any team in the history of football comes close. I know they didn't achieve the treble, and they probably underachieved, if anything. But game by game, the way they dominated, the way Villa, obviously he was a centre forward, got moved out to the left, and it didn't affect the quality of his performances at all. Just such a reliable goal scorer, hard-working, fast, lethal in one-on-ones. David Villa, for me, he's in that list. He's definitely an icon. Is he above David Silva? I think so. He's probably a legend, you know. I think he's underneath Bale. I'd have David Villa in that category. Maybe he might move, but I would have him above Aguero. I would have him above Aguero. I think his international record, his consistency at club level. Yeah, I would have David Villa in that category for me. I think Aguero probably had more to his game than David Villa. As an overall player, I probably would take Aguero, but everything in context, David Villa is just a little bit above, I think. Just a little bit above. Maybe he's in the legend. Maybe he goes there, you know, next to David Silva. I think that looks right to me. Yeah, I think that looks right. Edgar Davids. See, Davids is tough to rank, really, because I saw Davids when he was past his prime. So 2002 onwards is Barcelona, Inter Milan, Spurs, Ajax, Crystal Palace. Yeah, I think Edgar Davids, his best years was in the 90s at Juve with Conte and Del Piero and Inzaghi and Zidane. That's prime Edgar Davids. So I can't really comment much on Davids, but from what I remember from seeing Davids when I was younger, he still was very impactful, like a pit bull, engine for days, wouldn't stop running, tenacious, hard-working, eye for a pass as well. But I don't think he's in the category of, from what I've seen, Davids isn't in that elite level for me. I think he goes with Crespo. No, I think he goes with Adriano. He was a great player, Edgar Davids. He was a great player. But I can't have him above... I can't have him above Adriano for prime. I know they're different players. But like Ballack, for example, Ballack, in the period I've watched football, Ballack had a far greater impact than Edgar Davids. So yeah, Davids sits there for me. Kevin De Bruyne is comfortably, for me, a legend of the game. I think... Oh, is he above Bale? He's not above Bale. No. De Bruyne's not above Bale. I think Bale... I mean, they're very different players. Bale was a match winner. De Bruyne was the ultimate team player. Amazing engine, fast, strong, vision, his passing ability. Some of the passes from Kevin De Bruyne were unreal. Unreal. I think he's above David Silva as far as Man City legacy goes. I think now definitely. Maybe internationally De Bruyne isn't talking to David Silva in that aspect, but I think Kevin De Bruyne, for what he did at Man City, what he did at Wolfsburg as well. I mean, I know he's past his best now, but some of the performances he put in for Napoli this season, I think Kevin De Bruyne, for a solid 10-year period, I think he was probably in conversation as being one of the best midfielders in the world. So he has to be in that for me. Kevin De Bruyne. De Bruyne's not above Bale. I can't have De Bruyne above Bale. I can't have De Bruyne above Busquets. I think Busquets was a generational player in that role that he played in that Barca team. Kevin De Bruyne was an incredible footballer, but I feel like he wasn't as important to City as Bale was in some of those matches for Real Madrid. Maybe overall De Bruyne's impact to City was greater, but Bale in those big moments was so clutch for Real Madrid. De Bruyne in big moments for Man City, Champions League finals, performances for Belgium. Sometimes wasn't always there, but on the whole, De Bruyne, legend of the game, 100%. 100% legend of the game. David De Gea is tough because for a 2-3 year period, he was again in conversation of being the best goalkeeper in the world. But as football, similar to Czech, as football evolved and moved on, struggled to adapt as being a ball-playing centre-back as teams wanted to play it from the back. David De Gea just wasn't that technically good with his feet. Quite error-prone as well, especially earlier on in his career. And then throughout his career, he'd have ups and downs and very inconsistent. For a 2-3 year period, he was incredible at Man United under Mourinho. But I just don't think he's in this conversation, and he definitely isn't in that. He's not as good as Alisson. He's not as good as Cech was in Cech's peak. Courtois, I don't think he can speak to Courtois. He's definitely got a better legacy than Davids and Adriano. He's definitely got a better legacy than Anelka. He's not above Carvajal. I think he was a sensational goalkeeper for a period of time, David De Gea. He really was. I mean, I think between 2014 and 2017, I think David De Gea was incredible. Some of the shots, he's one of the greatest shot stoppers, just pure shot stoppers. The range of the range of saves he would make were incredible. I think he's Man United's all-time clean sheet record holder as well, which covers a lot of ground when you think of the goalkeepers that Man United have had. Amazing longevity, but I do think quality-wise, he's lacking in comparison with the other goalkeepers on this list. So I do think he's definitely above Anelka as far as overall quality and consistency of his career. But he hasn't achieved as much as Carvajal, and I think Carvajal was consistently better over his career than De Gea was. So I just have him just underneath Carvajal. For me, I think that seems right in my head. Deco was unbelievable. Deco, for a 2-3 year period, was probably the best midfielder on the planet. Pure midfielder. I think between 2004 to 2006, I think Deco was the best midfielder on the planet, in my opinion. Technically incredible, hard-working, goal-scoring ability, unreal playmaking, his dribbling ability, his set pieces. I mean, Deco could do everything really in midfield. Maybe not as defensively sound as other players, but going forward, Deco, unbelievable. Part of that amazing Porto team that won the Champions League, was the best player on the team. Went to Barcelona, won another Champions League, was important in turning Barcelona around post Van Gaal in that Rijkaard era. Deco was above Xavi for me. He was above Iniesta for me in that period of time. But again, peak level, so short for Deco. His Chelsea run had moments. He had moments for Chelsea, Deco, where he was incredible. But wasn't long enough. I think for that 2-3 year period, Deco was incredible. You could argue he was world class. I don't think I'd have him above Ballack. I'd have him above Casemiro as far as talent, but as what they've achieved, their career, it's tough. But I mean, Deco won the Champions League with Porto and he was the best player on the team. He won the Champions League with Barcelona. He was probably the best midfielder on the team. For that 2-3 year stretch, Deco was better than Casemiro has ever been. But Ballack, at a high level, consistently over his career, was better than Deco. So I think Deco was world class. But if he was a bit more consistent over a longer period of time, I think he could have been an icon of the game. Unfortunately, he just doesn't get in that for me. Unfortunately, Deco. So I will have him underneath Ballack, but they're very, very close. Alessandro Del Piero, again, similar to David's in a way, because his peak was late 90s. He was arguably the best player in the world in 96, 97, 98. Him and Zidane and R9. You could argue those three were the best players in the world. Post 2002, maybe for a 3-4 year period. No, that's unfair, actually. No, that's unfair on Del Piero. Del Piero was still world class for Juventus, at least up until 2008. Del Piero, I think Del Piero suffers a little bit because he went down with Juve after Calciopoli. Then again, so did Buffon, and I'm not knocking Buffon for that either. So Del Piero is above Crespo, 100%. He's above Carvajal. He's above Cavani. He's above Campbell. He's above Aubameyang. Bigger impact post 2002, Casemiro or Del Piero? That's so tough. God, it's so tough. Del Piero, I think, has to be above Deco. Does he have to be above Deco? I think peak Deco in this time period is better than peak Del Piero in this period. So I'd probably have Del Piero there. Oh, that doesn't look right to me. Del Piero's an icon of the game. Yeah, he's better. He's above Deco. Consistency wise, he's above Deco. He's above Ballack. Is he above Chiellini? Yes, he is. He's above Chiellini. Oh, is he above Alisson? Yeah. Is he above Cech? No. No, I think I'll stop there. I think that's where Del Piero sits for me. He's not as good as Aguero in this period of time. He's not as good as David Villa, so they definitely sit above him. I think impact in this era of football over the last 20 or so years, I think Cech's impact is bigger than Del Piero's. If you're going pre-2002, it's inarguable. Del Piero is a legend. But from what I've seen, from my time watching football, Del Piero, probably unfortunate because he was nearing the end of his career, but he still had 2 or 3 seasons there where he was world class for Juventus. Post Calciopoli, post World Cup 2006, he had moments of magic, moments of brilliance, Del Piero. Consistently, game by game, I don't think he's above Aguero or David Villa for me. So I think Del Piero sits there. I mean, I'm still debating whether or not to put him in world class. Him and Ballack are similar to me, I think. But then again, Del Piero probably carried it on a little bit longer than Ballack. Ballack at Chelsea was very inconsistent. Del Piero's level never really dropped that low. So I think I would definitely have him in that, I think. Yeah. I'm happy with Del Piero there for now. Angel Di Maria is, for me, one of the greatest players of his generation. He's a legend for me. Him or De Bruyne. Ooh, that's tough. Actually, Cafu has to come down, I think. Cafu goes there. That looks right, yeah. I think Di Maria's impact on this era is bigger than Cafu. Is Di Maria above De Bruyne? I don't know. Oh, that's so tough. I think big games, I think Di Maria has a bigger legacy than Kevin De Bruyne. I think he does. And he's done it for a bit longer than De Bruyne, kept a higher level longer than De Bruyne. The only time Di Maria really dropped quality was for about 8 months at Manchester United. And that's it, really. I think that year that he had at United, I think for some people kind of murks the legacy a little bit for Di Maria. But for me, one season out of 10, 15 seasons, I can't knock Di Maria for that, really. That time at Man United was so messy anyway. And I think the only thing I'd probably knock Di Maria for was that he was never the main man in his teams. Where I think De Bruyne was arguably the most important player for Manchester City for a period of time. When he wasn't playing, the level for City dropped significantly. Di Maria, when he left Real Madrid, they didn't really drop much of a level. When he left Man United, again, if anything, they got better. When he left PSG, when he was at PSG wasn't... They underperformed a little bit, obviously, in the league. They were incredible, but, you know, Juventus, he was good at Juventus. But again, he was never the main man, in my opinion, for any team he played for. Even internationally, obviously, it's unfair on Di Maria that he's playing with Messi, but he was always a great side piece. He was always a great team player. He was always a great second or third man in the team. But I think Bale, in moments, was the best player for Real Madrid, was the most important player for Real Madrid on the pitch. Same goes for De Bruyne, same goes for Buffon, same goes for Benzema, same goes for Busquets, where Di Maria just misses out on that for me. So I'd have him above Cafu. I'd have him just underneath. Him and De Bruyne, very close. Very, very close for me. Because I think De Bruyne in the league is better. League form-wise, De Bruyne is better. But international stage and European stage, Di Maria probably is better than De Bruyne, maybe. Oh, it's so tough. It's so tough. They can switch positions. They can flip and flop positions, really, any time for me. It's very tough. But yeah, I'm gonna have De Bruyne there and Di Maria there for now. Could change, but I think that's where I'm gonna have them. Next up on the list is Antonio Di Natale. Again, unbelievable for Udinese. Late bloomer, really. Di Natale didn't really hit his peak till he was 27, 28. But Di Natale, post 30 years old, he's a bit, I don't know what happened. He just became incredible for Udinese post 30 years old. So he's kind of an outlier in this, really. There's not many players that I could compare Di Natale to as far as his career goes. I guess Aduriz at Bilbao, you could argue, had a similar kind of career, like a late bloomer. Jamie Vardy, you could argue, similar career to Di Natale. He's an icon for Udinese, 100%, but he's not. He never did it at the highest level, Di Natale. He never did it at the highest level. So for me, that has to knock him down a little bit. Yeah, it does. That definitely has to knock him down. Yeah. I'm going to have Di Natale just under... was he above Adriano? That's tough. I think Adriano peak was way above Di Natale. Way above Antonio Di Natale. But Di Natale was so consistent for a period of time. Is he with Crespo? That's a shout, actually. He's Di Natale. No, Crespo did it at the highest level. Di Natale didn't do it at the highest level. Adriano was brilliant for Brazil as well. I think Di Natale goes there for me. I think he goes above Edgar Davids, but yeah. I think he's underneath Adriano still. Dida's tough. Dida's tough because for a few years, similar to De Gea really, he had a peak. He had a peak level, but he dropped off so rapidly for Dida. He come to the point where Abiati was starting over him post 2006, 2007. So Dida for me was like 3 years maybe. He had a peak for 3 years. I think David De Gea's peak was higher than Dida. I think Dida is one of many for me. He's in that Abidal conversation. I think Dida was really good for such a short period of time, but again, he was very mistake-ridden. He so error-prone, concentration issues, made a few mistakes. His performance in 2005 Champions League for me was appalling. I know he saved Alonso's penalty on the follow-up, but didn't really do that good for Smeets' goal. Didn't even dive for Gerrard's header. For me, yeah, he sits in that one of many category for me. Didier Drogba. Didier Drogba is tough. Drogba's tough to rank because Drogba, at his best, was unplayable for Chelsea. But Drogba's career for me is defined by big games. Similar to someone like a Bale, really, but I think Bale, game to game, was better than Drogba. Probably at a higher level. Drogba, I can't have Drogba over Aguero. I can't. Aguero's goals were just... He's an icon. He is. He's definitely an icon. He's above Aubameyang. He's above Cavani and Aubameyang. He's above Del Piero during this period. Drogba was so good. He always used to score against Arsenal. I think for his big game performances, for his quality for Chelsea, his performances for Ancelotti in that 09-10 season, 06-07 as well, he was incredible for Mourinho. I know they didn't win the league, but individually Drogba was incredible. Drogba is an icon. It's just, where do I put Drogba? Has he got a better legacy post 2000? He's got a better legacy than Courtois? Yes, he does. Better legacy than Casillas? Yes, he does. Better than Bonucci? Yes. Cannavaro? No. Cannavaro, I think, has a bigger... then again, that's so tough. It's so tough with Cannavaro because his peak in this era is so short, but his level was so ridiculously high. I remember that 2006 World Cup. Cannavaro was... You couldn't get past Cannavaro. He was unreal in that period. Drogba is... Yeah, I think Drogba's there for me. I think Drogba's there. I think you could argue he's above Aguero, Is he above Aguero? I don't know. It's so tough. I think Drogba, what gives Drogba an edge is his link-up play. His hold-up play as a striker was better than Aguero's. Link-up play was better than Aguero. Physicality was probably better than Aguero. Aguero was probably a better goal scorer. But as an all-round centre-forward, who would I rather have in my team? It's Drogba, I think. Drogba is above Aguero. Has he got a better legacy than David Silva? Oh, it's so tough. I think I'm going to leave Drogba there for now. Drogba could easily get into the legend category, I think. Maybe underperformed a little bit for the Ivory Coast, which does knock him down a little bit. But he's quality. I mean, Drogba, I know he had seasons where he didn't score a lot of goals, which, again, hold him back, but he was always important for that Chelsea team. Always important. Always showed up in big games. Chelsea aren't dominating that era of football the way they did without Didier Drogba. I think Man City could do that without Aguero. Maybe that's a big statement. I don't know. I think Drogba. I'm going to leave Drogba there for now, but I might come back to Drogba later. We'll see. Is that Edin Dzeko? Edin Dzeko is not above. He's in with Crespo, I think, for me. He's above Crespo. He's not a better player than Anelka. He's not. Probably more consistent than Anelka as far as a goal scorer. But Dzeko, then again, Dzeko at Wolfsburg with Grafich was something different. Him and Grafich, I think, had the combined. They had the most goals in that season in world football. They were incredible together. Come to Man City, I think his Man City period is quite overrated, in my opinion. He was not their main striker. Obviously, Aguero was more important. I think moments, you could argue Balotelli probably had bigger moments for Man City. But then Dzeko at Roma was really slept on, you know. Dzeko at Roma was ridiculous. Dzeko was above Crespo, I think. In this era, I probably would have Dzeko above Crespo, but he's not better than Anelka. I can't put Dzeko above Nicolas Anelka. No, Anelka was a far better footballer than Edin Dzeko. So he was an incredible player for a period of time, Dzeko, for his entire career, really. He's always been a goal scorer, big physical presence, great in the air, underrated technical ability, in my opinion. But he's definitely not in. He's not past those players for me. So Dzeko sits comfortably there, in my opinion. Michael Essien. Oh, Michael Essien. If not for injuries, Michael Essien is probably the most complete midfielder in the history of the Premier League. I know that's a massive statement, but Essien could do everything. And I think, if not for injuries, Essien is... Name me a more complete midfielder than Michael Essien in his prime. At Lyon, at Chelsea, he could defend. I remember there was a time at Chelsea, I think it was 2006-07. Obviously, they had quite poor recruitment. They bought in Tal Ben Haim, Khalid Boularus. Their recruitment wasn't great for centre-backs. And I remember John Terry was injured for a period of time. I think this was after the League Cup final when Diaby kicked him in the head. And Essien had to fill in at centre-back, and he was incredible. His reading of the game, positional play, his aerial ability for someone who's not exactly very tall. He's not a massive guy, Michael Essien, but his physicality in the air, he's dominant. He's so dominant in the air. His strength, his pace. He could score goals from range. His passing ability was very underrated. Michael Essien is such a complete footballer. Similar to Deco, his peak was very, very short, Essien. I think Essien's peak is probably 2005, maybe 2004 till 2008, maybe. and then the injuries started to creep up on him, and he was never the same player. When he went to Real Madrid, when he went to AC Milan, he was never the same player. So I think Essien, for me, he's in this category, I think. But he's probably at the end of the category because of his consistency levels, because of his injuries. If not for injuries, Michael Essien was unbelievable. One of the best, one of the most complete midfielders of his generation that was just ruined by injuries, which is such a shame because he was incredible, Michael Essien. Really didn't have a weakness in his game. Really, really incredible player. I think Cavani is above him. Campbell had a longer peak and was more... Yeah, I think Campbell as a defender was more consistent than Essien as a midfielder. Casemiro, what he's achieved. Deco, the level was so high. Ballack, again, longevity. Very complete as well. I think Essien was a world-class player, world-class talent, but he's at the end of that list for me, unfortunately, because he was incredible. Samuel Eto'o is a legend of the game for me. Samuel Eto'o is incredible. Back-to-back trebles with Barca and Inter, but even before that period, really, what he was doing at Mallorca, what he was doing for Barca in those early years, him, Ronaldinho, Ludovic Giuly, Messi in the early years. Eto'o was incredible. Always scoring goals. I think Eto'o was so important for those early years at Barca because they were used to having Patrick Kluivert and Javier Saviola and these players. Eto'o brought something completely different to Barcelona. His pressing was so underrated. Eto'o off the ball is one of the best strikers of all time. So underrated. His ability to press the back line, push the defence so far back that Barca could dominate the ball and dominate possession and leave gaps for Ronaldinho to dribble and to... He's so important, Eto'o. I think, again, big game player. He's above Cafu for me, Eto'o. He's above Di Maria. Yes, he is. He's above Di Maria. Above De Bruyne, yes. Above Bale. This is where it gets tough. I think Buffon needs to come down. Buffon needs to go there, I think. Because this is getting crowded, and I think I can't have a goalkeeper that higher than players like De Bruyne and Di Maria. I just can't. That doesn't feel right to me. So I think Buffon's there. Eto'o, Bale, Busquets, Benzema. Who's better at their peak, Eto'o or Benzema? That's... Oh, that's tough. Did Eto'o ever have a season like Benzema did when he went on that... Was it 22, 23 or 21, 22? When Benzema won the Ballon d'Or? I don't think... Has Eto'o ever had a season like that? Because even at Inter... When Inter did the treble, Eto'o wasn't the most important player on that team. It was Milito, in my opinion. Milito was the main striker. Eto'o was pushed out wide. But then again, his goal-scoring record's unbelievable as well. Because even after Inter did the treble, he did 30 goals. That 30-goal season in 10-11 under Benitez. It's so tough with Eto'o. I think Eto'o in his prime is in this list. He's very high on this list. But I think with Eto'o, his peak wasn't as long as Benzema, I don't think. So maybe that's what drags him back. I think Bale in big games had more impact. But then again, so did Eto'o. 2006 Champions League final. 2009 Champions League final. The games against Barcelona when he playing for Inter. Multiple 30-goal seasons. I think Eto'o... Is Eto'o above Bale? Yeah, he is. He is, yeah. I think Benzema still, for me... If he didn't have those last few years at Real Madrid, I think Eto'o clears Benzema, but Benzema, the work he was doing in that team, he was the main man, where Eto'o was never the main man at Barca. He was never the main man at Inter Milan. Benzema was the most important player for that Real Madrid team. They won the Champions League. He won the Ballon d'Or. I think that's a comfortable position. Is Eto'o above Busquets? Busquets is arguably the greatest player in the history of football in his position. Eto'o isn't. So I think that looks right to me. I think that looks right. I'm going to leave it like that. Yeah. It's tough. Again, it's so tough. It's so tough to rank these players because they're all sensational. It's really difficult. Patrice Evra, again. Ashley Cole can't be overrated, can he? Am I being really harsh with that, I think? I am a little bit. He's definitely overrated. But I think for the purposes of this list, Ashley Cole was so consistent. Again, 7 out of 10, pretty much every game. Never really let you down. Was the most consistent player for Chelsea in that period. The most consistent player for England. As well in that golden generation that did nothing. He was the most consistent player. Cole's got to move, hasn't he? I think Cole isn't above Carvajal. No, he is. He's above Carvajal, I think, as a player. But Carvajal's achievements... Cole's above De Gea. Cole was a sensational left back, but was he ever world class? Like world level Ashley Cole? Yeah, he was. He was. Yeah, he was. He's overrated. I think people would put Ashley Cole in this category, the legend category. I wouldn't put him in that. He's not that, and he's not in the icon category either. He's not better than Cannavaro. He's not better than other defenders in that list. He's not better than Chiellini. He's better than Essien. He's got a better career than Essien. I think there for Ashley Cole. Sol Campbell at his peak was better than Ashley Cole. Yes, yeah, he was. He was. But Cole... Is Cole above Sol Campbell? Oh, Campbell's my favourite player of all time. But Ashley Cole's level was so high for so long, so consistent. And I think for this time period as well, Ashley Cole was still starting for England in like 2012. And, you know, by that time he was winning the Champions League in 2012. Sol Campbell was long retired by then, so... Oh, this... Is he above Aubameyang? Yeah, he's not above Casemiro. Yeah, I'm going to leave it there. Ashley Cole's there. Which means Evra, who wasn't as good as Ashley Cole, but there's not really that much difference in my opinion. Evra was still world class. So consistent for a 10-15 year period. Patrice Evra was one of the best left backs on the planet. Again, so consistent. I would have him in the world class category. I would have him there. Essien was better. Sol Campbell's definitely better than Patrice Evra as a defender. That's not arguable. Yeah, I think that looks right. Then again, he's Carvajal better than... Carvajal below Evra. Carvajal has to go there, doesn't he? Carvajal there. Evra there? We'll stick with that for now. I'm not too sure on that. But Evra, can we just talk about Evra actually for a bit? Monaco Champions League final in 2004. Obviously, an amazing left back in Ligue 1 in the mid 2000s. Went to Man United, had a shaky start. But after that first season, for 5-6 years, so consistent. Captain Man United on multiple occasions. Multiple Champions League finals. Went to Juventus. Was incredible for Juventus as well when everyone thought his career was done. He was getting too old. Went to Juventus, and again redefined his career. Went to Champions League finals in 2015. Yeah, Evra's definitely world class. He sits on that table. Yeah, he does. Cesc Fabregas. This pains me so much. Fabregas was incredible. He was world class. He's above Ballack. He's above Deco. Is he in that De Bruyne category? I don't know, I don't know. Is he better than David Silva? I mean, they're very, very different players. Silva was more of like a wide player who'd create from wide positions. Fabregas in his early years was like a more attacking midfielder, a playmaker from more attacking positions. Later he become more deeper, could dictate the game from deep. He's above David Villa? No, he's not. No, I can't have him above David Villa. Fabregas is... Fabregas, Drogba... No, that ain't right. Drogba, Fabregas. Fabregas was a better footballer than Drogba. But Drogba achieved so much and he was so important to that Chelsea team. Fabregas was pretty much a utility player at Barca. Was playing false nine, was playing out wide, attacking midfield, playing pretty much any position they needed him to. Went to Chelsea and was brilliant at Chelsea for a year or two, but then kind of aged out. I remember one game Fabregas had for Monaco, and obviously this was old Fabregas. He was already way out of his prime at this point. But he had this amazing game for Monaco where he came off the bench against PSG, and he was incredible. Just rolled back the years, got a few assists, got a goal. Timeless player, Fabregas. But I don't think he had the consistency regularly as David Silva. Drogba probably had a bigger impact on the game overall. Big match game. Aguero, Fabregas. Yeah. I think that's right. Fabregas above Cannavaro, yeah. Fabregas below Aguero, yeah. I think that's right. Yeah, I'm going to keep it like that. Radamel Falcao. This is similar to Essien in a way, because Falcao, for 2-3 years, in my opinion, was unquestionably the best striker in the world. I think between, say, 2011, 2012 to 2014, for that 2-3 year period of Falcao, when he was at Porto, the first few years at Atleti, he was unplayable, man. I remember that the Super Cup performance against Chelsea. Flopped at Man United though. Obviously had that horrific injury, didn't he, for Monaco. Was never the same player. Lost, a yard of pace. Lost his sharpness. Lost a bit of confidence, I think, as well. Terrible at Chelsea. Didn't do anything at Chelsea. He's above Crespo. Definitely above Crespo. Above Dzeko, easy. Above Anelka. He was world class. Cavani probably did it for longer, but Falcao was better. Oh, that's tough. I think Falcao was a world-class player for a period of time. Similar to Deco in a way, he was so elite. Falcao was elite. Elite. For about 2-3 years. So I think Falcao and Deco can go, I think, together there. Because even when he come back to Monaco after his loan spells at Chelsea and Man United, he had a season when Monaco won the league, when they had Mbappe and Bakayoko and Lamar, and he was central to that. Scored a lot of goals, performed against Man City, that amazing finish over Caballero, that lovely dink finish. He never lost the quality, I just think he lost his fitness, his sharpness, his confidence, but he still had these moments. El Tigre was something different. So for me, he goes in that world-class category. Ballack was more consistent, I think, over a longer period of time, but the level that Falcao reached, ridiculous. I think if you're talking about peak of players, prime players, I think Falcao is in that Eto'o conversation for me. But Eto'o just did it for way longer, more consistently at a high level. I think Falcao sits there for me. He does. Up next is Rio Ferdinand. Now this is going to piss a lot of people off. Rio Ferdinand for me is overrated. I've always thought Rio is chronically overrated. I think he was a defender that relied so heavily on his athleticism. He relied so much on his speed, his agility, that he, when he got older, declined so heavily. I think 2008 onwards, Rio Ferdinand was washed. He was so washed, Rio Ferdinand. I think Ferdinand's peak, I think you could argue he was incredible. He was brilliant at his peak. But his peak in this era, again, was so short, and he relied so much on his... When people talk about Rio Ferdinand, they talk about his ability to read the game, his distribution. Ferdinand wasn't that great. Ferdinand wasn't a better distributor of the ball than John Terry. John Terry was a way better passer of the ball than Rio Ferdinand. Rio Ferdinand was adventurous. He'd risk it. Similar to David Luiz in a way. He'd bring the ball out. He'd try and run past people. But he'd make a lot of mistakes, Rio Ferdinand. Rio Ferdinand was so mistake prone. I remember so many times he'd be out of position, reading the game, especially when he lost his pace and he couldn't get back to position quick enough. He used to get caught out of position so heavily, Rio Ferdinand. For me, Rio is chronically overrated. Still, look, in comparison to the average footballer, Rio Ferdinand is obviously a different level. But in comparison to these, some of the greats of the game, Rio Ferdinand is nowhere near in the conversation of people like Nesta, Cannavaro in his peak. Yeah, for me, Ferdinand sits very, very comfortably in overrated for me. Luis Figo. Figo, similar to David's in a way, had his peak before I started watching football. Just because of age, I guess. I remember Figo in his last few years at Madrid and with the Portuguese national team. And at Inter Milan as well, but he was already kind of past his peak then. He was getting a bit older. He was used kind of rotation in and out with Quaresma and Pandev. And I'd never really looked at Figo. I looked at Figo as like an OG of football. Like when I first started watching, the aura that Figo had was very strong. But I think what Cristiano Ronaldo's gone on to do has eclipsed Figo so heavily. Figo, amazing dribbler. Not the quickest, but amazing dribbler. Very creative. Was an incredible footballer. But for me, from what I saw watching football, from my era of football, it's tough. His peak wasn't as long in this era as someone like Del Piero, that's for sure. Even though you'd think they're similar generations, I think Del Piero held his level a lot better. That's not a knock on Figo. But Figo at his peak in this era, was he better than Deco? No. Was he better than Ballack? No. Better than Aubameyang? No. Better than Cavani? No. Better than Essien? No. Carvajal, yeah. I think there for Figo. I think there is comfortable for Figo. I think Figo is... Yeah. He was a world-class player, and I saw enough games from Figo growing up where he was world-class. But again, it's such a short period of time for Figo in this era where it's it's very, very tough to fairly rank him on the quality he was. I think if I was born, say, 5 years earlier, and I could have seen Figo at Barca with Rivaldo and Stoichkov and all these players, and I could have saw him with R9, and then I could have saw him at the early years at Madrid, maybe that's a different story. But Figo, from what I've seen, very much, it's a shame I missed his peak, I think, with Figo. But he still was incredible. Next up on the list is Diego Forlan. Forlan is so underrated, criminally underrated. I think the problem with Forlan is he flopped at Man United, and that will always kind of carry with Forlan. But Forlan at Villarreal, I mean, I'm sure he's won 2 European Golden Shoes. I'm sure he has. He was in an era of Eto'o, David Villa, Thierry Henry, like, you know what I mean? Even Messi and Ronaldo, who's in an era with these players, Van Nistelrooy, Raul, and he still managed to get 2 European Golden Boots for when he was at Villarreal and with Atleti. Amazing. My long-lasting memory of Forlan was the 2010 World Cup. He was incredible for Uruguay at that World Cup. Probably the best player in the World Cup, to be honest. So, peak Forlan, I think for a 5-6 year period, he was brilliant. He's above Crespo, I think. Yeah, he is. He's not as talented as Anelka, but he's more consistent than Anelka. So he's above Anelka, Forlan. He's above David De Gea. He's there. He's not better than Cavani, I think. I think Cavani was better than Forlan consistently. So I would have him just underneath that world-class category. I think high sensational, just underneath world-class for Diego Forlan. But in periods, in a few months, say like in a 2-month period, Forlan could have been the best player in the world. Like, he was that good. But it's just, it wasn't consistent enough. Went to Inter and flopped, and I know he was a lot older then. Man United flopped as well. But for a period of time, Forlan was scary. Gary Neville. Now, Gary Neville was a great player. He was. He's not on the level of Cafu, so I can't put him anywhere near Cafu. He was not a world-class footballer, but he was incredibly consistent. So I will have Neville for his consistency, for his energy, for his crossing ability, which is very underrated, for his leadership, for his achievements, his accomplishments. Gary Neville will sit in incredible for me. He's not better than Carvajal, so he's definitely not in that list. He's not a sensational footballer. He's not got any one singular quality that I'd look at. Like Forlan was his long range shooting or his performance at the 2010 World Cup. De Gea was that 1 or 2 seasons with Mourinho at Man United. Anelka his time at Chelsea when he won the Golden Boot. His performances for Bolton as well. They had those moments where I think Neville really didn't have those moments. So I think Neville, for me, is incredible. He will sit there for me. That's where Neville will sit. Yeah. That's where Gary Neville sits for me. So, after Gary Neville, we've got Gennaro Gattuso. Gattuso, it's tough with Gattuso because I think he was a very important part of that AC Milan team. But he played a role which needed to be played. But as a footballer, Gattuso left a lot to be desired. He left a lot to be desired. Gennaro Gattuso. Important. Very important player for Milan. I'm going to say one of many for Gattuso. Yeah. Davids was a better all-round footballer than Gattuso, but Gattuso probably had more importance to his team. He's there for me, Gattuso. Yeah, he's there for me. I'm going to have him there. Yeah, Gattuso will sit there for me. Right, Gervinho. Gervinho can... He's a cult hero, Gervinho. But he was... Yeah, Gervinho... No. He's not even one of many. Like, is Gervinho even a hero? I think Gattuso is a hero, not an icon. No. Gervinho is one of many, I think. He could have been anyone, Gervinho. I don't think he's never elite, never world class. Had moments where he showed potential. I remember that season he had at Lille with Eden Hazard, and he was brilliant that season for Lille. But again, Arsenal, very underwhelming. Roma, very underwhelming. Parma, very underwhelming. For me, Gervinho, cult figure with when it comes to football. A cult hero, but he's definitely not an icon. He can sit there. Ryan Giggs. Oof. Now, Giggs is, again, a player that spans many generations. So it's tough to rank Giggs. But in a way, I'm going to be talking about Giggs not as a flying winger, because he wasn't a flying winger when I watched Ryan Giggs. That wasn't the Ryan Giggs I watched. The Giggs that I saw was late 20s, early into his 30s, was more of a central player, dictator, a game controller. Incredibly consistent, Ryan Giggs. Ridiculous consistency. I mean, I think he's the most successful player in the history of English football. Ridiculously consistent. Very underrated, forgotten about, I think, in modern football because of what he's done in his personal life, which I'm not going to get into. So Giggs, from what I saw in that period, was world class. He was a world class dictator, controller of the game, but very low on that list. Again, this isn't peak Ryan Giggs. So the peak Giggs, you'd probably say, would be 92 through till 2000, maybe. That's peak Giggs, flying winger, beating players, skillful, pacey. That was peak Ryan Giggs. This is not peak Ryan Giggs. So post 2002 Ryan Giggs for me was... Is he world class? No, he's not. He's not Ryan Giggs. He had moments. He had individual games where he probably was. And I remember in 2007-8, that run to the Champions League final, he was incredible, Ryan Giggs, that season. Playing centre midfield. He was world... Yeah, he's above Evra. He was more important to that team than Evra. Probably gets close to a Figo level, you know. As far as players that... Then he did more than Figo in that period. He did more than SCN in that period, but SCN was... I'm going to have him there, I think. He's above Figo in this era. Again, I think he kept his level for so long, kept playing till he was like 40, and never really dropped quality. He was still an incredible footballer. So yeah, for me, Ryan Giggs is there. Just underneath SCN. Right, after Ryan Giggs... I'm not going to lie, I don't have a clue who that is. The Fiorentina player, I don't know who that is. I'm not going to lie, I'm not going to pretend like I know who that is because I have not got a clue. So I'm going to skip that because I'm not going to talk about players that I don't know anything about. We'll skip to Olivier Giroud. France's all-time record goal scorer. Let me just... Yeah. So Giroud, France's all-time, like I said, France's all-time record goal scorer. Giroud's tough because he had spells in his career where he was really, really good. At Montpellier, he won the league with... he won the league with Montpellier, which is incredible. What an achievement that is. He's France's all-time record goal scorer. You think of the strikers and the players that France have had: Zidane, Platini, Henry, Trezeguet, and he's above all of those. Benzema, like he's above all of those players. That's incredible. Giroud was in. It's so tough to rate Giroud because one-touch finishes in the box. I'll always say this about Giroud. As a one-touch finisher, Giroud is incredible. Really good. But he had spells where he was barren for Arsenal. He wouldn't score. He couldn't buy a goal. He's so inconsistent, Giroud. Important for the team. As an individual, not for me. I'm going to have Giroud. To even have him in the same category as players like Di Natale and Adriano is wrong for me. So I'm going to have Giroud as one of many. He's definitely one of many. I think many players could have done what Giroud's done. I think the most commendable thing I can say about Olivier Giroud is he's been very consistent. Never really gets many injuries. Consistent in the concept of him being available, being there. He's always been a fixture of those French teams that have been very successful over the last few years. An amazing team player. Works hard off the ball. But yeah, Giroud, he can sit comfortably in that table for me. Mario Gomez. Gomez. Stuttgart Gomez. Early Bayern Gomez. He's a problem. He was a problem. Mario Gomez. He was a great player. He was better than Giroud. I think peak Gomez is better than peak Olivier Giroud. He is. So he can't be in that category for me. Gomez, better than Davids. Yes, for that period of time, yes, he was. Better than Di Natale, no. Di Natale was better than Gomez. Gomez at the top level flopped a little bit, really. Germany in 2012. Never was able to really displace Closer. Failed in Bayern in the Champions League final. I know he had a great season that season. Got like 40-something goals. Ridiculous. But in the big moments, in the big matches, Gomez went missing. So for me, I would have him as a great player, but not above Di Natale and not above Adriano. Sorry, no. Gomez can sit in that table for me. Antoine Griezmann. Griezmann is... Are we going to be harsh on Griezmann for his time at Barca? Because was that really his fault? Because I look back on that period at Barca, like post-Neymar, and look at the signings they made, like Coutinho and Griezmann and these players, and Dembele. Griezmann was never going to fit into that Barcelona team. It's one of the worst signings in Barcelona history for many reasons. The price, the fact he didn't really perform, he didn't really do anything, he was underwhelming. Griezmann, he's got to be in this category, I think. World class. He was world class. He was. And I think later on in his career, like recently, he's been able to play a little bit deeper, be a bit more of a playmaker. Started obviously out wide as a winger for Sociedad. Became more of like a second striker at Atleti, playing with Diego Costa and later Morata. But it's tough with Griezmann. Griezmann is above Aubameyang. He is. He's definitely above Aubameyang for what he's achieved. He's above Falcao. Is Griezmann an icon of the game, you know? Griezmann above Del Piero. He is. He's above Del Piero. Euro 2016, World Cup 2018. He was so important for that France team. So important for that Atleti team when they won. I know he didn't win the league, did he, at Atleti? But very important for that Atleti team to stay competitive. Big, not really underwhelmed again at Barca. He's got to be an icon of the game. He's not in the same level as David Villa. He's not in the same level as Aguero. I think he's got a better impact than Cech. Yes, he does. There. Griezmann, there for me. I think for what he did internationally, he's one of the greatest international footballers of all time. I know that, again, might sound crazy, but when you really think about it, when you really deconstruct his career, Antoine Griezmann's performances for France, unbelievable. You could have argued, I wouldn't agree with this, but you could argue he could have got a Ballon d'Or 2016. Best player at the 2016 Euros. It's very tough with Griezmann. I don't think he's not better than Drogba. No, Griezmann there. I think Griezmann there is right. He's definitely above Del Piero for this era. As a player, obviously, I'd have Del Piero higher than Griezmann, but for this era, I think Griezmann has to be above him. He does. Next up, Eden Hazard. Oh, Hazard. Hazard is very tough because talent-wise, Eden Hazard is unreal. Eden Hazard is sensational. Truly, I mean, what he was doing at Lille as a teenager, ridiculous. What he was doing for Chelsea under Mourinho in that second season of Mourinho, and the first season actually as well. What he did for Conte in his title-winning year, his last season at Chelsea under Sarri, he was one of the best players in the world. The only thing is with Hazard is, I think his time at Real Madrid, similar to Griezmann in that aspect. I think he really flopped at Real Madrid bad, whether it be injuries. His commitment to the game also knocks it back for me. I think the fact he was always inconsistent with his fitness. He was unreliable in big games, in the biggest games for Chelsea. I felt like he went missing, Hazard. He was a sensational player to watch. I think on the eye, Hazard was ridiculous. Talent-wise, he's right up there for me. From what I've seen, like Hazard as a footballer is more talented than Bale, more talented than De Bruyne, more talented than David Silva. But consistency, career-wise, impact, it's tough. It's tough for me. He was definitely a world-class footballer, 100%. Is he in that Deco category? I can't have Hazard in the same conversations as people like Griezmann, Aguero, Drogba, Villa. I can't have him in that conversation. This isn't just talent. This is accomplishments, their career, what they did during their career. And I think Hazard, the Real Madrid move, I didn't think he did enough for Belgium. There was games, the Brazil game, 2018 comes to mind, but consistently for Belgium, underperformed. Had seasons where he underperformed for Chelsea. I don't think statistically he's probably done enough, but he was world class. He's above Deco. He's above Falcao. He's above Ballack. He's above Chiellini. No, he's not. He's not above Chiellini. He's not. I think, again, talent, well, this isn't just talent. I think Chiellini consistently, year in, year out, was one of the best centre-backs in the world. Hazard was amazing for a season, like world-class for a season, take a season off. World-class for a season, take 2 seasons off. World-class for a season. He was very up and down, Hazard. Talent-wise, one of the best. Career-wise, lacking for me, Hazard. Eye test, incredible, but Hazard was a world-class talent who, for me, underachieved. He underachieved massively for what his talent should have been. And that's just my opinion on Hazard. Okay, right, that's going to be it for today, guys. We're going to stop and leave it there because this video is going to be on for a long time. It's going to be so long. But we are going to continue this another day and continue ranking these players because this is really fun to do. It's interesting to go back and look at some of these players and deconstruct their careers and talk about them and compare them with other players from their era or the previous era or the era after. It's very fun to do that. So it's going to be interesting to see how this table will look at the end. But so far, let me know what you think. Do you think I've probably been a bit too harsh on some players? Do you think some players have been a bit overrated? Have I put them a bit too high, a bit too low? Let me know in the comments below, and we'll continue this very soon in part 2. But thank you very much for watching. Thank you for supporting the video. Thank you for supporting the channel. Obviously, I want to do more of this as time goes on. So if you want to see more, then please let me know in the comments below, and I'll catch you very soon. Bye bye.